I really have the belief that here on Earth, we come to this planet in order to learn how to navigate all of these emotions. We learn how to navigate what jealousy feels like and looks like, what hate feels like and looks like. Because if we can move through those emotions and still embody love, then that's actually love. Alright, hello everyone, I am Ella Dawn. I am a mindset mentor, energy healer, shamanic practitioner, and mesa carrier and yoga instructor. I have been practicing for over 10 years, and I have hosted many workshops. I facilitated at a lot of different festivals and events. I really love empowering women to step into their authenticity and their power, and to release those voices of doubt and shame that are keeping you smaller, and just really helping empower you to live your best life. Before I had this near-death-like experience, I was still always very spiritual. Ever since from a young age, I was able to see and hear spirits. And I was raised in a really strict church, but because of my beliefs I had, because of the supernatural experiences that I had had, I wasn't necessarily very close to the church or really believed in religion. But then I started attending a church for the sake of my children, and that's when it led me to having that experience, and it really overhauled how I do energy work, how I approach energy work, and what kind of spiritual entities that I work under in that realm of work. So the near-death-like experience that I had, I actually had it at a church. I was debating whether I should go to this particular event at the church or if I should end up going to a manifesting spiritual workshop. And so I used my little pendulum and I asked which one I should go to, and it said I should go to the church workshop. So I did. And the pastor had asked us, who do we need to forgive? In order for God to be able to forgive us, we need to forgive others. So I asked myself, who do I need to forgive? And I realized that I had to forgive myself for all of the judgments that I had in life, for all of the tumultuous experiences I had gone through. I had gone through addiction. I had been very suicidal at times, and I had to forgive myself for all of that, and I had to love myself despite everything that I had experienced. And I had to let go of the resentments and judgments that I had against Christ. And once I realized that, all of a sudden it was as if I was teleported. I wasn't there sitting in my chair anymore. I just had this complete vision of this man, Jesus, standing in front of me. He was just kind of like this shadowy figure, but I just knew that he was Jesus. And he was holding this lantern, which was unlit. And suddenly I had all of these flashbacks of these moments in my life when I should have possibly died, times when I had walked through dark alleyways at midnight, possible drug overdoses, and all these instances that I was so close to death, but that he had saved me from that, but I never even realized how close I had been to death. And he told me that he had been trying to protect me and he'd been trying to save me, but that he couldn't fully do that until I asked him for help. And so that I came out of this vision and was just like, this is crazy. How is this real? I didn't necessarily even believe in Jesus at that time. And so it was did this actually happen, or was this just me going crazy? And then all of a sudden a woman came and tapped me on the shoulder, and she had said that she had been across the room from me and she'd been prompted to look over at me, and she had seen an angel standing over me during that experience. So it was at that moment that I realized that was definitely a real vision from Jesus reaching out to me and trying to help redirect my life and redirect the way that I was working and showing up. But I can definitely say that after that moment, once I started leaning on him and relying on him, and still not even in a church-like way. Like, I still obviously do energy healing, I still do card readings and that sort of thing, but I really got to know the Bible and start to discover the truth that was in the Bible, and have developed an intimate relationship with him afterwards, and I have to say my life has just blossomed ever since. So you can see him, so what does he look like? When I saw him, like, I didn't specifically like see details. Whenever I do see other entities and stuff like that, they're more like kind of like a shadowy figure. It's not like you're necessarily seeing a person directly standing across from you, but there was just this deep knowing that that was who it was, that was who he was. So, does this like like is the Bible? Yeah, so I've definitely started, after I had that experience, I was like, I really want to know who Jesus is and how this pertains to what I have been experiencing, how this pertains to, doing energy healing, crystals, yoga, all of that kind of stuff. So I started taking a ton of Bible college courses to really dissect the Bible and learn what was actually in it outside of what just the church taught. And there's actually so much about magic and about, energy and frequency and crystals that are right in the Bible, moon cycles even, that we often don't even realize. And, was really able to step into my purpose in life. And I was able to find my own self-worth too when I realized that there is this other entity, this God who is watching out over me and who has always been watching out for me. It allowed me to find a renewed sense of self-purpose rather than just relying on other people to fill that sense of purpose for myself. Yeah, I'd say the biggest advice would be like really getting to know and understanding and loving yourself, because too often the reason we get angry at other people, the reason we lash out at other people is because of our own jealousies, our own insecurities inside of ourselves. So we see someone else, having a lot of abundance, having a lot of wealth. We see someone who has a lot of power and authority, and we start to feel really small ourselves. We start to feel insecure. We start to feel jealous. And so then we want to lash out on them. We want to, take over that country. We want to control them so that we don't have to look at what is actually happening inside of ourselves. So if, each person can start collectively doing that work, they can start observing their emotions and they can start honoring it and just loving themselves regardless and saying, okay, I see that I am feeling this way, and, starting to dive into why they're feeling that way, then they can start to release those judgments and they can start, responding in love rather than reacting out of those lesser emotions. And I think if we start doing that and, we start all showing up in that way, then we can start to change the world. I don't think necessarily, well, you could say that God allows it, but I really have the belief that here on Earth, we come to this planet in order to learn how to navigate all of these emotions. We learn how to navigate what jealousy feels like and looks like, what hate feels like and looks like, because if we can move through those emotions and still embody love, then that's actually love. Like, when we're 3 years old and we have no concept as to what love is, it's just, kind of superficial because we're just surrounded by love. It's not like that deep layer, that deep level of emotion, having surpassed those things, having walked through those things. So I really believe that Earth is kind of like our training ground in order to learn what these things are and learn how to evolve past them. And, we are we are spiritual beings in a human body. And I think that there's so much more than just what's happening here on Earth. So if we can see that Earth is like high school, basically, then, there's so much more waiting for us beyond just this pure existence. And so if we can see everything as a teaching, as a training, as a lesson, rather than taking it so personally, then I think that alone would help alleviate a lot of the suffering. One, like, history has proven that Jesus was actually a real person, and just based upon my own personal experiences, like, I know I am always learning and growing, and what I know is, constantly evolving, but to have met him on such an intimate level, and then to witness how much my life had changed once I started asking him for help, was kind of undeniable to me. Now, do we have to specifically call upon Jesus himself? Like, Jesus has so many names in so many different cultures. But I think if we're open to the idea, then of calling on, Jesus, of calling on the Creator, then it can extremely help your life. Versus if you are afraid of calling upon him because of all the judgments that, has happened, because of all the persecution that has happened in the church, maybe you need to start looking at why you're holding those judgments, why you're holding that hate in the first place, when that's not what we're supposed to be holding. I think eventually we're going to be able to overcome suffering, whether it's on in this lifetime or not. I see collectively as a whole that a lot more people are starting to wake up to the societies and systems that are in place, by the higher structures, by the government, and they're starting to wake up to realize that we're only being led to a place of hate and of judgment, and they're really starting to change the way they're approaching their lives. They're changing their way of how they're approaching each other, and whether we do evolve into this new Earth, or whether Earth itself is always going to be the training ground and we eventually evolve and move on to some other form of higher living, I'm not quite certain at this time yet, but I do believe that there is hope, and that we have to continually aspire to walk in more love rather than judgment. I think people have different purposes in life. I really do believe in reincarnation, and that we come here at different times in order to learn different lessons. But I think ultimately the ultimate purpose of life is to be able to learn what true unconditional love is, and to be able to surpass those lower emotions of judgment, of hate, of jealousy, of greed, and to still be able to to witness those emotions, but still to always choose love. And I really think that that is the purpose of our existence here on this earth, is always being able to choose love over everything else. I would have to say I learned that Jesus is real. I learned that there is a difference. I used to really, when I did energy healing sessions, I only operated under love and light. However, having had that experience, I learned that there is a difference between Jesus, between other spirits, and that love and light isn't necessarily a protective measure. That, Lucifer, who's the, who turned into Satan, he was the fallen angel who turned into Satan. He was the bringer of light. He was the light bringer. And so when you're just saying light, like, who are you really tapping into? And when you're just saying love, like, your typical narcissist boyfriend who treats you terribly, says he loves you, but his form of love is control. So how do you know? But he thinks it's love. So how do you know when you're just saying love and light that you're actually protecting yourself and you're actually walking in true unconditional love that has, Jesus came to this earth, he experienced all these things that we experienced, he suffered, he was beaten, he was broken, and yet he still loved everyone. And so I realized the importance of tapping into his power versus, just tapping into universal love and light. And I found the way that it changed my energy healing sessions, it made them more effective and more potent, was incredible. And I also learned, my own self-worth, as mentioned, that there is more than just us, that we do have this all-powerful creator who's watching out for us, even when we haven't asked for it, who still cares for us. But if we can ask for that help, but that being said, in general, I really believe that God is helping guide humanity to a healthier place, and that, he does work everything out for good. So even if it seems like something is going terribly wrong, that at the end of the day, he's going to be able to turn that around, and he's going to be able to put systems in place to be able to shift the course of humanity for the better, and for us to be able to heal as a collective. I think one day war will stop. Is it going to have to get worse before it gets better? Like, maybe. It's kind of like with what happened in 2020, with everything that happened, with society shutting down and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, like, with COVID, with the pandemic. But even though it was so terrible, and even though we are still seeing the effects of it, I think because of it, it allowed a lot of people to wake up to the control that was happening as a whole. And, it did still also cause a lot of people to start to change their way of thinking and to realize, like, maybe this isn't the best way. Maybe we shouldn't be relying on this. Maybe there are other avenues, rather than just being blind sheep who led to our slaughter. So I think even if there are these situations occurring, that there's still always going to be a way out, and there's always still going to be a silver lining to them. I can say is that if you are doing the inner work yourself to heal yourself, if you are, starting to forge a connection with your higher self, with God, with spirit, that having that connection, he will, be able to send you messages to help navigate that. That's like when the pandemic was happening, I actually ended up having a dream. And, he was saying, as long as you walk in love, like, there are so many people who are rising up to fight against what was happening, but they were still inflicting so much hate and so much pain on the other side. So he's like, if you can just walk kind of like this middle line where you're loving everyone and you're trusting where I tell you to go, then you're going to be able to get out of this, like, unscathed. And so I think we need to realize, like, as these crimes are occurring, as these wars are occurring, just what is the most loving way to approach it, and how can we really stay connected to have that internal guidance, to trust how and when we should move through life. I'd say, like, regularly, I'd say all of life is a spiritual experience, to be honest. When I'm working with clients, just the intuitive hits of things that I get of what they might have experienced or what they might have went through that is causing these energetic blockages is, absolutely beautiful, and it's amazing, and always seems to kind of hit the mark. And so I'd say every single day is a beautiful spiritual experience, working with these people and helping them evolve into their highest forms and maintaining this connection with God, with spirit, in order to do this work of guiding other people. For myself, I receive things more just as a knowing. I do sometimes witness different spirits, or can feel different entities that are inside houses. So I have also done, like, house clearings and stuff like that. There was one particular experience that I did have once, where I was working with a client, and she was, there was this ghost, I guess you could say, that had been haunting her husband's workshop. And so they noticed things had been moving into different locations. No one had physically moved it. They put something down somewhere, it'd be somewhere else. A chair had randomly just, like, combusted into fire for no reason. And so she was like, would you be able to tune in and see if you're noticing anything here that's causing these disturbances? And this was a lady who was in the States. I myself am in Canada. So I decided to try it out, and once I tuned into the area of this workshop, she sent me some pictures of it, and I, kind of went into a meditative state. I was able to tap into the sense that there was a woman who was there, who was, she had an abusive relationship. I just kind of had this like knowing of this story that kind of came to me. And she'd been in this abusive relationship, and she was really mad at men. And so she'd been kind of hiding out in this warehouse, and now suddenly got turned into a male workshop. And so she was feeling really threatened by the situation, and hence why she was moving things around and trying to kind of scare them off. So typically when I do a energy clearing, I'll just ask for them to be removed, to like move on. But something told me that I needed, my guides told me that I needed to like stop and like talk to her and listen to her story. And she told me that she was like afraid to move on to the next life, to the next phase of her existence, because she had been raised in a religious church and she believed that she was going to hell. And I myself don't believe in heaven or hell. I think, hell is almost a place here on earth that we're supposed to transcend. And so she was afraid that she was going to go to hell, and so she was afraid to move on from this current earthly existence. And so my guides told me to take her hand, and I felt, my guides and Jesus hold my other hand, and we just sent her like pure love. I just felt this warm pulsing of love like flowing through from one arm into the other. And as she felt this love, she realized that she was safe, that she was held, and that she wasn't going to be going to some burning fiery furnace like she thought, and she was able to move on to her next existence, whatever that ended up being. And so after that experience, I checked in with her. I told her that I had done this and that, she had moved on. And I checked in with her a month later, and the place was no longer haunted. Nothing else was happening. Nothing else was ever moving. No chairs were being lit on fire anymore, and it worked. So that was a beautiful experience, and just goes to show that power of love, and how much our own judgments can even be, tormenting us even when we die, and why it's so important to move through those things now and here. I've never fully seen the future myself. When I do offer oracle card readings, which is different than tarot. Oracle card readings are more along the guidance, like there's different authors who create these decks, and they have different artwork and different meanings, and every deck is different, whereas tarot is a very ancient systematic approach. But I myself personally have never really resonated with tarot cards. I've always felt them, just never felt. I think the definition of God is an almighty power who simply wants what is best for us, who loves us. And I think, God does show it. God is energy. He is frequency. He's the frequency of love. But I also feel that frequency is in everything. It's in every one of us. We're all, the Bible states we're all made in the image of God, but we don't know what God actually looks like. Like, there's no description. And so I believe that we have the very essence of this God DNA in our own cells. So just like, our Father, our physical Father, we are not Him, but we have His essence, His DNA coursing within us. And so we also have this divinity of God coursing within us, and it's in the trees, and it's in the earth, and it's in the plants, it's in the animals. And so by working with this energy and, recognizing that it's all around us and it's in us, like, that is God. I think, well, that's where it kind of comes back to that question that was asked of, like, who do you need to forgive? Because God says He can't forgive us if we aren't forgiving others. And so, one of our biggest karmas, one of the biggest things that we have to walk through is forgiveness. Because how can we be love if we're still holding on to so many resentments? So I think, yes, God will forgive everyone, but it comes down to what kind of inner work are you actually doing? How much are you actually humbling your heart in order to connect with Him, rather than thinking you are all-powerful yourself? If anything, I believe that hell is this prison. Hell is like this existence on earth. Like, if you look around us at wars, at, what we're even doing within our own selves, of those emotions, like, hell is here on earth. And I really believe that everything that is discussed in the Bible while it is tied to historic events, we see Jesus always talked in parables and, had a deeper spiritual meaning for this physical event that occurred. So I think if we start looking at Jesus's return to earth, if we start looking at, what the historical events were and how that actually applies within our own body, of recognizing that Jesus returning to earth is actually Jesus, manifesting himself within us in the form of love, in the form of change, then, that, once we get to that point, like, that is heaven itself. It's not some castle in the sky that we go to. And I do believe that after this existence, like the Bible even talks about, we're going to rule over other planets and systems. And I believe that, like, that is going to happen, that, it doesn't just end here in this physical existence, that once we have learned these lessons, we've graduated that high school of earth, that there is going to be something more that we get to move into. What that looks like, whether it's coming back as guides now for those here on earth, whether it's going on and ruling other planets and star systems, it's, kind of hard to say, but I really do believe that that the heaven and hell as discussed in the Bible or as discussed in church isn't real, and that there's so much more to it than that. Once we die, I think we can, basically we connect back with God and we kind of discover what our next mission is, whether there's still something we needed to learn and we have to come back to earth, or whether, we have finally evolved to this, existential state of being and can move on. I really believe that there is more after this existence, but I wouldn't, I think it's kind of on an individual basis. And we even see that in so many cultures, do believe in reincarnation, and they have, they all have parallels in what they believe, that there is something more after this existence. And so that's, that's what I believe in. Yeah, if you have no lucky life, how can you forgive others, basically, is the question you're asking, right? I'd say again, just looking to Jesus in that, because, you could say that he had a really unlucky life, but at the end of the day, he still forgave others because he knew that there was more beyond this. He knew that he had gained so much strength, so much fortitude, so much love from what he had experienced. And so he was still able to forgive everyone. His words were, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And I think when we realize that oftentimes people are treating us badly out of their own mirrored actions, because of their own insecurities, out of their own inner turmoil, and it's not actually about us, then we can start to find forgiveness more easily. Tapping into spirit, like, start listening, start enhancing your own intuition. I love to, build up my intuitive skills by, even in the morning, just simple things like asking, like, what did I do today? And kind of listening to that inner knowing as to how I should move through the day. Watching for signs around you. Like, I love witnessing signs like heart rocks or special animals and stuff like that show me that I'm on the right path. And you can even ask, be like, okay, if this is the right way that, if this is the right decision that I should make, then, send me a sign of an elephant wearing a hat, or something weird. And, just watch for that sign. It might take a couple days. But, the world itself, Earth herself, God loves to send us these signs. He loves to build a relationship with us, and we have to realize that this connection with spirit is a relationship. And so just like when you first met someone new, you have a hard time connecting with them. You don't know how they speak, you don't know how they communicate. But as you spend more time with them, you start to pick that up. And so connecting with God, connecting with spirit is that same sort of relationship that takes time and patience and practice. So, really enhancing, building that relationship is so important. And then also starting to become more observant of your own emotions, checking in with yourself every day, noticing, like, what am I actually thinking? Is this serving me? Is this helpful? Or is this just dragging me down? And starting to become more observant of your emotions. And the more time you spend practicing that, the more time you spend tuning in, again, the easier it's going to be. So that way, when you are in the middle of a fight, when you are in the middle of, some sort of event happening, you've already developed those skills to be like, okay, this is how I am reacting. How can I shift this? And, awareness and walking in love and having that connection are the most important things that we can implement right now to help us through life overall.